Greetings and welcome to the International Pediatric Simulation Society podcast. This show is for people passionate about pediatric simulation-based education, training, and research. Podcast hosts are members of IPSS, a global community of multidisciplinary healthcare professionals from over 30 countries, all dedicated to improving the care of infants and children worldwide. Each week, one of our sub-hosts will introduce you to a new guest and bring you into a conversation with simulationists and healthcare professionals from across the world. Come along.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the International Pediatric Simulation Podcast. I'm Dr. Eduardo Frias, greeting you from the Center for Pediatric Simulation at the Montreal Children's Hospital. Today, we're excited to bring you a fascinating conversation about the Emergo train system, one of the world's leading simulation-based disaster preparedness and emergency management training programs. Our guest today is Audrey Morel, Interim Director of the Simulation Program at the Centre Hospitalier de l'Université de Montréal. Audrey is a registered nurse and a simulation program development advisor involved in clinical simulation since 2014 and a certified healthcare simulation educator. Audrey contributes to the design, implementation, and evaluation of a wide range of large-scale simulation programs and activities. As an Emergo trained system educator, she organizes and runs instructor courses at the Centre Hospitalier de l'Université de Montréal ETS faculty.
Today, we're exploring a fascinating aspect of healthcare simulation, one that goes far beyond individual clinical skills and focusing how the entire healthcare systems respond under pressure. To help us understand how simulation can prepare healthcare professionals for these extraordinary situations, I'm delighted to be joined by Audrey Morel. She's an amazing friend and also the director of the CHUM Simulation Center. Audrey has extensive experience in disaster simulation education and has been instrumental in developing the Emergo program here in Canada and North America. So, Audrey, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Audrey, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I am a nurse by training, specialized in obstetric care. I've been in the healthcare system, both in Canada and the US, for a little bit over a decade now. And I've been dabbling in immersing myself in simulation for a little bit over a decade as well. So I use simulation in my training, in my academic training, and also on the units that I worked in. I started my simulation by being a really hands-on educator, specifically content expert in obstetrics. And now I'm more of I like to think of it as a frame expert. So I help other educators to get a little bit more comfortable in designing scenarios, doing debriefings, doing simulations, not only immersive simulations with mannequins and test trainers, but also tabletop simulation, game-ish simulation as well. So I like to dabble in a little bit of every type of modality when we think about simulation in healthcare.
That's amazing. And I think that we will need a complete episode just to go through your career and all that you have done in simulation. So I just want to keep it like short. And I want to start by this phrase, like, I think that we are the things we eat, the people we know, and the places we go. So please tell me, a person that you admire, what's your favorite food, and where do you like to go when you want to have fun?
Oh, goodness gracious. Someone that let's start with the food. Why not? Start with the food.
That's an easier one.
Yeah. So something I like to eat, seafood.
Seafood.
Any type
Amazing.
of seafood, no matter how it's prepared. A place I like to go, it's kind of related to the food, actually. I like to go anywhere that's by the sea. It kind of calms my interior. It helps me align, helps me be grounded. And we do have a secondary house that's by the sea here a little bit north in Quebec, in Gaspésie. So that's where the seafood comes from as well. A person I admire, if I stay within the career itself, there's a friend of mine that I have known for a little bit over a decade. She's a nutritionist. She's also a music composer. She's also a manager. She's kind of a jack of all trades. And she has this calm, soothing energy in everything she endeavors to achieve, which I really admire. And she's always this kind, grounding person for me that I can talk about. We can talk about pretty much everything. So she's one of the person I admire most in my life. So
Wow. Thank you for sharing. And I think that I share a lot with you as someone who grew up near to the beach. Seafood is an amazing, part of my life. So yeah, I completely agree with that. Any specific recommendation here in Montreal where we live?
You mean for seafood?
Yeah, for seafood.
Oh, goodness gracious. I'm more of an at-home cook for seafood.
Amazing.
So I import seafood from the north of Quebec, crab, lobster, oysters, all of those. And I like to do them
delicious.
at home.
That sounds delicious. I don't know how I'm going to go through my day now with the idea of all of those amazing, plates on my head. Thank you very much, Audrey. So we're going to discuss today about Emergo, a unique simulation tool in order to prepare teams for disaster. But I mean, we are kind of related with this tool. We think that it is amazing. But for the listeners who have never heard about Emergo, how would you describe this in a minute?
Okay. So Emergo is a simulation tool. Yes, for mass casualty incident. It is very game oriented is a way that we like to explain it to people that's never seen it. So it's a lot of tiny human resources, victims that you can play on a whiteboard. It has a game side, but it's also very authentic as the experience that you experience when you are doing a simulation with the Emergo train system. And it's very easy to reproduce how you communicate, how you work as a team in mass casualty incident on a whiteboard, everybody together in a room. And it's a lot less resource intensive. And it's a very, authentic experience, I think.
Yeah. And I mean, that brings us back to these discussions about the gamification of simulation, how it is important, to practice. Why do you think that this approach actually works? What is so effective, to have this gaming approach that you are mentioning?
I think it works because it does slightly lessen the stress on our learners as they participate in that exercise. So they do still feel that slightly enhanced stress of doing a mass casualty incident simulation, but you don't have mannequins in front of you. You don't have actors. You have tiny little paper people that you put on the board. So it feels authentic, but is slightly less stressful. And it brings the most amazing debriefings because you can see a lot of things that happen simultaneously that usually during a live mass casualty incident, everybody kind of works separately. You do have this big communication and leadership system that is implemented, but you are doing your own task and you don't have this kind of step back of seeing everything that happens all at once. That I think is a pretty specific thing that happens with a tool such as the Emergo train system is that you can see everything that happens in that one section of the ER, for example, that usually you wouldn't because you would be in a specific room, let's say.
Yeah. And I remember when you first told me about this tool because, of course, you were the one who introduced me to this and any other different tools in simulation. I mean, I was amazed by the fact of having a big simulation with all of the different teams involved. One of the first questions that I asked myself at that moment was, who can be part of Emergo? Which teams can get involved? Is this more from for administrative team? Is more from the physicians, nurses, technicians? Who can actually participate in the Emergo simulation?
The quick answer is everybody. What I mean is the Emergo train system can be used in a multi-tiered simulation. So you can use it to kind of work on specific abilities such as triage, emergency start triage, for example, but you can also use it to see how do I dispatch all my victims and my patient within my hospital? How do I move everybody? How can I make sure not to lose any patient in transit, make sure everybody's in the right place? And the Emergo train system is already scenarized. So you already have a story for more than 1,000 victims from the incident site to the hospital's ER, to the operating room, to the ICU, to the units, the wards afterwards. So all these units can play together. We are in a hospital setting, you and I, so we use it more obviously in the hospital setting, but it is also very much used worldwide in pre-hospital settings, so on site where the incidents happen. In you can simulate cities and see how a mass casualty incident can have its impact on a city, for example. So we use it for the hospital because that's where we work, you and I, but it is also worldwide, very, very used and utilized to test how team work together when we talk about firefighters, police departments, and paramedics.
Yes. And I like the way that you're describing that you use it to test how they are doing, that you use it to measure how things are going. Yeah. What are like the specific tools in this like amazing system that you will use to actually like measure those things? Is there like any kind of like a specific like impact or like performance indicators that you follow in order to prove that you are actually performing?
Yeah. So whenever we design scenarios with Emergo as a tool, the evaluation, the assessment is always twofold. So there is the part that is, as with any other simulation exercise, so the indicators that we do want to observe regarding communication, regarding delays. So that's a way to see how, as a team, as an organization, how did we do in that simulation? Did we the communication start at the right moment? Did we have acceptable delays for new people to come in? So that's kind of the standard, I think, that can also be achieved with a regular tabletop exercise in a way. The specific Emergo assessment tools that can help us see as a team and as an organization, did we succeed as much as we would in a mass casualty incident, revolves around patient care and around prioritization. So the tools are already existing within the Emergo trade system. So they are developed by a team in Sweden, where the tool comes from a traumatology center and mass casualty specialized team. So they have tools that tells us every single victim that exists within this tool. We have a way to follow every hour of their care after the incident, what should be done so that these victims survive and have the least amount of side effect long term. A quick specific example would be certain times of trauma patient would need to have at least a collar and at least have a first quick look assessment be done within the first 30 minutes to make sure that they don't have a severe repercussion on their health long term. We also have specific assessment tools for where they should be. So let's say a certain type of trauma victims would need to have surgery within the first 3 hours to make sure they don't have complications, and within 5 hours to make sure they don't actually die from their trauma and their issues. We also have some assessment tools that are specifically for the use of resources, human and material resources within organization. That's more specific to hospitals, of course, or other type of institutions where the victim would go. So those tools of assessment, every patient that is already, for example, in the ER or in the OR or in the ICU, if a mass casualty incident starts, where should they go? So where should they go? Do we keep them in the ER? Do we have to send them back home? And for, let's say, my patient number 26, if I keep him in the ER, I'm overutilizing resources because he would be okay going home and seeking support from another institution in the next 12 to 24 hours, for example. So I'm overutilizing my resources. I'm putting resources on a patient that doesn't need it in the next 12 to 24 hours. So all those tools help us build indicators within our simulation to see, as a hospital, as a system, are we able to take care of all our patients as best as we can and save as many victims as we can and see how we did. That's pretty good. Wow. It's hard to evaluate and assess usually within simulation, but with that tool, it's quite easy.
Yeah, that's something which is amazing about this tool, that there's already like a full system developed in order to track the impacts and to track the performance of different parts of the process. For all the audience, this is a super special discussion for me, an interview for me, because Audrey is one of my mentors in the simulation world, and it's amazing to listen from her like about evaluation, because she talked me about evaluation, and to go back into the importance of the evaluation of performance in every single aspect, and having the right performance indicators to measure different things. Exactly. It's something that we know that it is essential in simulation. So for this tool, as we are sharing, to have performance indicators, both, at the moment of the extra hospital attention, but also at the moment of triage, but also of how like the teams perform as teams inside the unit, but the performance also of the physicians and nurses with the interventions that they will do, and like the micro and macro like analysis of performance that the tool allows you to have. This is something which I find amazing, and something like really different that we will what we will do like normally in our disaster simulation evaluation approach. Audrey, from this perspective, how do you think that this tool could be similar, equal, or superior to the traditional mass simulation, the mass casualty simulation scenarios we have done back at CHUM or here at McGill? Those simulations with a lot of teams in big places, like simulating like the ER. How is it different to simulate that setting with Emergo?
We find it very complementary to other modalities of simulation, to traditional sit-down tabletop, to a really full-scale mass casualty incident training with our physicians and nurses and administrators. So for us, Emergo is one of our many tools. We do adore using it very early on in our tests and diagnostics because of that really wide view that we can get with the simulation with Emergo. So usually in our process, we do base our simulation program for mass casualty on the OMS. I don't remember the English acronym.
It's okay in French.
Organisme Mondial de la Santé. So,
the World Health Organization, the WHO.
The WHO. Thank you. That's it. So we do base our programs for mass casualty on the WHO guidelines. So we do start with regular trainings, and then we do a quick tabletop exercise for mass casualties. And then we go into Emergo. That's where we use it right after a quick tabletop. And we use key participants of all the professions that would be implicated in a mass casualty incident. So we do have doctors, we do have nurses, we also have administrations people, so the ones that would actually be making the calls. We do have everything that's so how we would clean the environment. We do have all our mesures d'urgence, so all our staff that would be I can't remember. So José, everybody that's emergency management within the hospital and outside.
The
so
coordinators.
Coordinators. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we do try to have representatives of everybody. And what we learned from an Emergo simulation, we can continue to optimize our response plans as an institution, and we can then at some point do a full scale mass casualty incident, but it's a lot cheaper to do it with Emergo than actual full scale. It's a lot quicker to prepare and to design as well. So that's how the difference between a true mass casualty incident full scale and Emergo is the time it takes, the amount of money it costs to actually make it happen, and the feasibility as well, because we're not going to lie to ourselves. Nowadays, the resources are tight within the healthcare systems, and our system is actually under tension right now, which is kind of normal for everybody. So to be able to do a real full-scale exercise could take hundreds of people, hundreds of hours, and to be able to prioritize that within the actual health of our patients sometimes can be challenging. So Emergo is kind of a quick success that we can make sure that we do test our processes and do it within a timely manner.
And one could be like worried maybe that if they want to also like test or put hands-on process on the simulation, that if they want to really put and practice those technical skills, is it possible to include a mannequin, for example, in the Emergo dynamics or any other kind of, standardized patient, in that scenario, is that something that can be put onto the game?
Of course. That's for me is kind of a standard in simulation that you can always hybrid your modalities. So you could, if you have some specific technical skills that you need to practice within mass casualties, you can always hybrid your modalities. So you would use Emergo for the widespread of the simulation, and you could have some task stringers or a full mannequin or standardized patient. And the standardized patient could be in full makeup, full gear, or they could just have the Emergo cue cards. So we do have specific figuring cards with Emergo that have kind of the visual of what the trauma looks like to help bring in some standardized patients, let's say, or simulated patient. But you could still bring some in full makeup, full getup to be taken care of. And you could do that for the ER, for the pre-hospital, for the on-site. You could do that for the operating room as well. So one of our long-term dreams, and I say ours because I'm not the only one to have it at CHUM, since we've been using Emergo since 2017. So it's been a couple of years. And one of our dreams is to have a truly complete hybrid simulation. So start it on site somewhere outside the hospital, close to us, have a part that we would play on our whiteboards with Emergo, but also have some victims go through our actual ER to an actual simulated OR, to an actual simulated ICU room in our simulation center. So to have that truly hybrid experience is kind of one of our dreams. We're not quite there yet because there's still a couple of things that we have to optimize before we go to that wide of an exercise, but it is a dream for someday.
No, I mean, it seems amazing. It's something that you can adapt to the needs, it's like really flexible in how you can use it. And I think that flexibility and like the full context of like the evaluation, infrastructure that there's behind it, it's like super useful and valuable for different programs. After conducting like a lot of these mass casualty disaster scenarios, what do you think that it is like the big challenge for the teams? What do you have identified the thing that the teams struggle the most when facing these tabletop games, and also the traditional mass simulation approach?
I think there's
both for the simulationists and for the ones who are actually living the scenario.
For the participants. So for the simulationists, the part that with Emergo that you do have to kind of adjust to is that you're not going to get full physical realism from a whiteboard, but you still can get a great authentic experience for your learners if you add respecting times of treatment and have a little bit of extra noise and signals within your scenario. So for the simulationists, using Emergo is like learning to use a whole new tool of simulation. So it's a learning curve. And as you get used to it, you can get more creative in your scenarios and bring a real authentic experience for your learners. For the learners, what we have noticed in the last couple of years, as more as we're doing mass casualty incidents, and I'm sure a lot of other hospitals and organizations has come to the same conclusions. There's two things that I see in mass casualty incident simulation with Emergo, with tabletop and all that. Communication is always key. And communication is always one of the first things that challenges the team. So how do you go from your usual communication channel to emergency channels? So that communication is kind of the backbone of any team dynamics and any optimized system in healthcare. So that's one of the things that gets challenged really quickly in a mass casualty. And what is real information that you have to communicate real quick to another provider, and what can actually wait? Because there's a lot of calls going all over the place in mass casualties. So what is essential? What has to be said? And how can I say it quick, efficiently to the right person to make sure that everything is kind of optimal within the mass casualty incident? So that's kind of the one thing that we have seen with all our exercises. And and I'm going to take my nurse hat for that. On the professional healthcare provider side, what is a challenge I found is how do I go from giving everything I have to all my patients to try to save everybody to actually go from I need to save the most amount of people, and I might not be able to get all the care I could do for a single patient because I have to save as many as I can. So that kind of shift in paradigm for a healthcare professional is kind of a hard thing because sometimes it goes against our core as a healthcare professional we want to save everybody. And that's one of the things we see with Emergo, and it's a little bit challenging because you do have just a little gaba, so the little paper puppet in front of you.
Yeah.
To say, well, technically, this patient has been with us for 2 hours. He hasn't received these 4 things that he needed as treatment goes. So the collar, the blood transfusion. So right now, he dies. That is very challenging to let a patient know that a patient is going to die. Probably a couple of them in a mass casualty incident is a very challenging thing professionally. So we've done a couple of exercises so far, and that part is always really challenging as a professional in healthcare.
I remember just how intense can they get those debriefings after like having the activities and people sharing like real emotions after just like doing like, what it seems to be a board game. How do you find like the debriefing process when discussing about tabletop simulation, and specifically with Emergo? Is it different than regular like simulation debriefing? Do you think that there's like something extra?
I wouldn't say there's something that it's very different. So we approach it the same way we would any other type of debriefing with our structures. And the specific part for Emergo debriefing is there is a lot of learners. There's a lot of participants. The last Emergo debriefing we did, our master debriefer, let's call him that, he had 85 people in front of him in that first part of the debriefing. Wow. So that could be the challenging part, to have so many people who all have lived through emotions during that scenario and all have thoughts and ways they would want to do different and things they thought went really well. So the debriefing can be sometimes a little bit more challenging. So we have to be really creative with the structure that we use. Yeah. So when we do really wide, large group simulation with Emergo, we like to kind of sequence debriefing in phases. So we do like one very big, everybody together debriefing, and then we do smaller debriefing with the local teams. And then we can bring everybody back together to kind of share what happened within the different section of the simulation. So what happened in the OR, for example, with the OR team, we'll do a debrief with them, and everything that is very pertinent for the whole exercise we'll bring back as a large group. So the specific as, well, this patient, we didn't have this specific tool to operate on. That might not be something that the people that work in the ER want to talk about during a debriefing, but we received 2 patients we didn't know we were going to receive. That's pertinent. That has to be shared with the one that are doing the movement within the hospital, with the unit that sent the patient. So it's kind of a multi-phase debriefing that we do, and larger groups, smaller groups. And you kind of have to be a little bit creative, and the main debriefer has to be an expert. Yeah, that's the one thing. So the skills and the competency of the debriefer has to be very solid. Let's just say, to be able to maneuver a group as large. And we always like to have a couple of debriefers present to be able to kind of support each other if we do need to, depending on the size of the group as well.
As this sounds like an amazing program, and being part for myself of a pediatric center, of course, I know that a lot of people in our audience are also in the pediatric world. Is there any specificity for like the pediatric world in this program? I mean, sometimes we're concerned as pediatricians that most of the tools are developed for adults, right? And to train how do you want to work like in the adult world, in the adult hospital. Is there a specific like pediatric hospital like scenarios or tools in this Emergo system?
Yes, there is.
Amazing.
They came out a couple of years ago with, when I said earlier, there's over 1,000 possible victims. They came out with a specific pediatric kit. So that is only pediatric victims. It's about 100 itch victims that are
Okay.
children from all ages. So we can build specific scenario with pediatric victims with that specific kit. We always also like when we do these kind of large scale exercise to kind of mix it up a little bit. What I mean is we are an adult only hospital. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to get an adult bringing in his children with him to my adult hospital.
Yeah.
The same goes, I think, for specific children hospitals. You would, in a mass casualty, sometimes get adults as well. So it's kind of, we like to kind of modulate our scenarios to, yes, feed the specific victims that you would get usually, but also get outside of that to kind of test as a hospital, as a unit. Are you able to give a little bit more, get outside of what you usually do? And where is your limit? So that way you can actually pre-scenarize it. So if it does happen, we'll be ready. We know that we can actually take care of adults. Do we need extra? Do we have the material to do that? Do we have the equipment? And if we don't, how do we accommodate as many people as we can? Because in a mass casualty, no matter where you are, you always have to do more than what you're specifically programmed for, let's just say.
We have already discussed about who can participate in an Emergo activity. Now, who can run it? Who can actually like prepare and develop these activities and processes? Now, I mean, after listening this, I know I'm biased because I have been part of those, but it sounds amazing and I would love to have it in my center. So how can I bring it here? What should I do? Where can I buy the material? What should a center do in order to have access to run a simulation of this kind?
So to be able to use the Emergo tool, you have to be an Emergo instructor. So that's the way that Sweden and all the Emergo faculties have been able to kind of assure that every simulation run with Emergo is done to the maximum of its potential and respects all the standards of a simulation and of the use of Emergo train system as a tool. So the way you can do an Emergo train system simulation in your center, you have to have an instructor, at least one. So that instructor needs to get trained in a faculty. There is a couple of faculty worldwide. There are some in Sweden. So in Linkbing, the first center, there are some in Australia, in the UK, and we have the one at CHUM, of course, because I'm going to talk about my hospital. Most faculties are either in their own language or in English. So there are some in Japan that are actually Japanese faculties. And the one at CHUM is the only French one in the world and the only one in the American continent. So you just pick the faculty that you would like to attend and you become an instructor. When you are an instructor, you can order the material. And the people in Sweden, the team, they are wonderful. They help you cater the perfect kits for the size of your organization, what you would need to be able to simulate. When you become an instructor at a faculty, what you will learn is not only what type of material exists, but how to build your objectives for mass casualty incident with Emergo, how to animate, so how to accompany during a simulation with Emergo train system, so how to use signals and noise and intervention to make sure that your simulation goes as well as it can go. You will learn how to identify the right indicators for your assessment as well. So we kind of show you how to use all the tools that comes with an Emergo. For specifically the faculty that we do have in Canada, we have added an extra debriefing module because for us, you can show a tool about simulation without at least making sure that the learner is a minimum of debriefing abilities. So it's a 30-ish minutes. So it's a couple of quick tools, but you do get to, it's a very hands-on training. It's a 3-day hands-on training. So there's a lot of theory, but there's also a lot of exercises and demonstration that get you to be really hands-on with the material. And you get to actually do yourself 3 simulations as a participant, but as an educator. So you create 3 simulation during that faculty. So it's a really hands-on training. And then you can implement it in your organization with the material and your skills. We do have most of the time for our simulation. We have some Emergo educators and instructors, but we also do them with what we like to do called a content expert. So I do am a nurse. I have a little bit of expertise in nursing, but when I develop scenarios for doctors only, for residents, I have to have a content matter expert with me to make sure that not only the tool is used to align with the objectives of the program, but also because sometimes the learners do surprise you in simulation and they have questions you were not prepared for. Yeah. So we also, so the facilitators during our simulation, some of them are instructors, but some of them are also content matter expert that can help us have this really great facilitation team to make sure that the simulation goes as smoothly as possible.
I find super interesting and pertinent the fact that there's this like debriefing preparation process, or like at least a capsule of debriefing techniques. Yeah. Because my next question was kind of like, should I choose someone in my simulation center who already have like some simulation training? Should I choose someone in my center that it's an expert, or could I choose someone who is like just starting their simulation career to be trained in this simulation tool? So knowing that there's like certain tools that are going to be given in the course, it's reassuring. Yeah. But do you think that the person who's training to becoming an Emergo instructor should already have certain like capabilities or knowledge around simulation theory?
It's really helpful. So we do make sure that you have a basic in simulation in the beginning of the training, but somebody who already has a little bit of experience in simulation, it does give you a leg up. So kind of you're already starting a little bit further. So you understand the standards of practice in simulation. So it's kind of just learning a new tool to implement in your simulations as well. So it's a little bit easier. However, we do have a lot of learners that have never done simulations and just come they're sometimes from emergency medicine, from the that side of they're coordinators, let's say, of emergency medicine in hospitals and all that. So maybe they did a couple of tabletop sims, but that's the extent of their experience with simulation. And we do make sure that they have at least the strict minimum to be able to create and do a simulation and debriefing, respecting all standards. But so it is helpful to have a base in simulation. It is not required, but it is helpful.
It's a nice to have, let's say.
Yes. And with the one thing that we do suggest to all learners, if they are not simulation educators, to make sure to find someone in their hospital or in their system that is a simulation educator that can accompany them in creating their scenarios. So we do like to make sure that they have a team with them, because you can create an Emergo trained system simulation by yourself as an Emergo senior instructor, but it's very hard to realize to make an experience in simulation as a solo instructor, Emergo instructor. You have to have a couple people with you, so you have to build yourself out a team.
And it's a village in order to
always
make it happen. It takes a village. Audrey, do you have any last message about Emergo that you would like to share with the audience?
Goodness. Yes. So, like I said, it's a tool. It's one of many. It is a good one. We do preach for it, but it's not gonna. Let me rephrase that. So, Emergo is a tool. It's one of the many tools at your disposal as a simulation educator. We do love it. It is very useful, but it is one of many tools. Yeah. So we always say, use it as much as you can in the spectrum of what it was designed for. Use it with creativity. Use it within a program. It's a very fun tool to use and to scenarize with, but it is one of the many tools on your toolbox as an educator.
For everyone in our audience who's just starting their journey through the simulation world and getting involved, like in, scenarios, scenario development, debriefing, etc., like simulation in general, do you have a message for them?
So it is a privilege for me to be part of this community. So I feel so blessed to be able to be part of this simulation community and keep going. We are needed. We are useful. I know we're not, as educators, always hands-on with the patients, but we do our training the providers that are with those patients. So it is a pleasure to be part of this community. And I look forward to maybe meeting a little bit more of your community.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Audrey. It was also a pleasure to have you today in the show. Thank you very much for sharing with us about this tool and for opening our eyes to different resources that we can have to keep our teams prepared for whenever this unexpected disaster, mass casualty scenarios happened in the real world. Thank you very much for joining us today. And we will expect to have you soon back into the show.
Thank you so much, Eduardo.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the IPSS Podcast. Join us next time.